Let me describe two people. Person A drives a $90,000 car, posts vacations from the Maldives, wears a Rolex, lives in a penthouse apartment in the city center. Everyone at the office talks about how successful he is. Person B drives a 2014 Honda, hasn't posted a vacation photo in 3 years, wears a $40 watch from Amazon, lives in a modest house in the suburbs. Nobody talks about him at all. Person A has $12,000 in his bank account and $340,000 in debt. Person B has $1.4 million in index funds and paid off his mortgage last year. Here's the question that should bother you. When you first heard those descriptions, before the numbers, which one did your brain immediately label as successful? If you hesitated, that hesitation is exactly what this video is about. Because there is a psychological trap so deeply embedded in how humans think that most people spend their entire financial lives inside it and never even realize it has a name. It's called lifestyle signaling. And the data shows it is one of the single biggest reasons people who earn good money still die with nothing. To understand why we judge success by lifestyle, you have to understand where the instinct comes from. For the vast majority of human history, we're talking hundreds of thousands of years, there were no bank statements, there were no investment portfolios, there was no such thing as a net worth. What you could see was status. Who had the most meat after the hunt? Who wore the best animal skins? Who lived in the biggest dwelling? Visible resources meant survival. They meant power, safety, mating advantage. Our brains evolved to read external signals as proxies for wealth and capability, because back then, external signals were wealth and capability. Fast forward to 2024, and here's the problem. The wiring didn't update. Psychologists call this Veblen consumption, named after economist Thorstein Veblen, who in 1899 wrote about what he called conspicuous consumption, the deliberate display of wealth to signal status to others. But here's what Veblen didn't know, and what modern neuroscience has confirmed. We don't just consume conspicuously to signal to others, we do it to signal to ourselves. A 2018 study published in the Journal of Consumer Psychology found that luxury purchases activated the same neural reward pathways as social approval. In other words, buying an expensive thing doesn't just make other people think you're successful, your own brain experiences it as evidence that you are successful. The car isn't transportation, it's a story your brain tells itself every single morning when you walk out the front door. And that story is costing people everything. Let's talk about what the numbers actually show. The Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances, the most comprehensive financial survey conducted in America, found that the median net worth of American households is $192,700. Not the average, the median, the actual middle. Meanwhile, the average new car payment in the U.S. hit $735 per month in 2024, according to Experian data. The average American is spending nearly $9,000 a year just on a car payment. Credit card debt hit a record $1.17 trillion in 2024, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. A significant portion of that debt isn't from emergencies. Research from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau consistently shows it's from lifestyle spending, restaurants, retail, subscriptions, and experiences people couldn't actually afford. Now here's where it gets psychologically interesting. A study from Princeton, the famous research by Kahneman and Deaton, found that beyond roughly $75,000 in annual income, more money did not meaningfully increase day-to-day emotional well-being. A separate 2021 replication by Matthew Killingsworth found the correlation continued further up the income scale. But here's what both studies agree on. The relationship between spending on visible status items and actual happiness is remarkably weak. In other words, the brain predicts the Rolex will feel amazing.
The data says it wears off in about 3 months. This is called the hedonic treadmill, and it is the engine that keeps lifestyle inflation running forever. You upgrade, you adjust, you need the next upgrade to feel the same.
So why do people keep falling into this? Why, even when we know better intellectually, does the pull toward lifestyle signaling remain so powerful? There are 3 specific psychological mechanisms driving this, and each one is worth understanding separately. Trap number 1, social comparison theory. In 1954, psychologist Leon Festinger published social comparison theory, the idea that humans evaluate their own success not against any objective standard, but against the people around them. You don't feel poor because your numbers say so. You feel poor because your neighbor just got a new kitchen. You don't feel successful because your investments crossed a milestone. You feel successful because you're driving a better car than the guy in the next office. Social media supercharged this beyond anything Festinger could have predicted. You're no longer comparing yourself to your neighborhood. You're comparing yourself to an algorithmically curated highlight reel of the wealthiest, most visually successful people on the planet every single day, multiple times a day. The comparison pool became infinite. The pressure to signal became relentless. Trap number 2, present bias. Behavioral economists have documented extensively that the human brain dramatically overvalues present rewards compared to future ones. In a famous experiment, people were asked whether they'd prefer $100 today or $110 in 1 week. Most chose $100 now, even though waiting 7 days for a 10% return is an extraordinary financial decision that no investment on earth reliably provides. Now apply this to lifestyle spending. The dopamine hit of the new purchase is immediate, certain, and vivid. The compounded wealth of not making that purchase is abstract, distant, and invisible. Your brain is not broken. It's doing exactly what evolution designed it to do, maximize present reward. But that design is catastrophically misaligned with building long-term wealth in a modern economy. Trap number 3, identity fusion. This is the one people least expect and most resist hearing. Research in consumer psychology, particularly work by Belk on what he called the extended self, shows that humans fuse their sense of identity with their possessions. The car isn't just a car. The watch isn't just a watch. They become psychological extensions of who you believe you are, which means downsizing isn't just a financial decision. It feels like a loss of identity. It feels like admitting failure. The brain resists it with the same intensity it resists genuine threats. This is why people who intellectually understand that they can't afford something still buy it. The alternative isn't just cheaper, it feels like becoming less.
Here's what I want to leave you with. There is nothing wrong with wanting nice things. There is nothing wrong with enjoying the fruits of your work. The data doesn't say wealthy people live like monks. What it says is this: the people who actually build lasting wealth almost universally made a specific psychological shift at some point in their lives. They stopped performing success for an audience that wasn't watching and started building it for a future self that was. Because here's the uncomfortable truth about lifestyle signaling. Most people driving past you in traffic are too focused on their own financial anxiety to notice your car. Your colleagues who seem impressed by your watch are quietly wondering if they can make their own mortgage payment. The audience you're performing for is largely imaginary. Meanwhile, the compound interest on the money you didn't spend on that performance, that's completely real. We're paying an enormous price to perform for an audience that's judging us far less than we think. The question isn't whether you can afford the lifestyle. The question is, who are you buying it for? Because if the answer is for other people, the data suggests that's the most expensive mistake you'll ever make.